Have you ever played a role-playing game like Dungeons and Dragons, otherwise known as D&D, where you become a character and play through a storyline? If you have, did you ever play it to combat climate change?
I'm here today for two reasons. One, to play D&D, and two, to help with apocalyptic resilience.
Because that's exactly what happened at the Exploratorium in San Francisco. Hosted by the nonprofit Mycelium Youth Network, young and old came together to save a make-believe town from a polluting tyrant.
Well, well, well. What do we have here? A group of intrepid adventurers? You are too late. My potion factory is...
As part of their Gaming for Justice program, Mycelium Youth Network creates homebrewed campaigns where adventurers use teamwork and problem-solving skills to explore environmental issues.
We look at moments in the Bay Area's history and present that have had an environmental impact, and then we think, how can we put this in a fantasy setting? And then how can we support young people to play through this and just let their imaginations go wild in terms of how they want to address it?
When Lil and I first kind of discussed this adventure, she told me that story about how the wildfire smoke was impacting kids in a very physical way that they could feel in their lungs. It made their eyes sting, it gave them nosebleeds. And we thought air pollution is a pretty big topic, and it's something that can be very visible, like when you see just kind of unknown steam rising out of a factory, that can be something that's menacing. And so we kind of looked at that and we're like, okay, let's build a campaign around air pollution.
The way that air pollution kills so many communities is through small breaths that we take every single day. And so we wanted to think about how can we put this into a fantasy setting. The way that we're doing it is we're creating an imaginary town where there's a potion manufacturing plant that is stripping resources of the surrounding area, saying that they're building all of these new jobs, but in reality they're creating these potions which are toxic and they're emitting toxic chemicals.
Our game starts meeting one of our non-playable characters, Honu, who is a community leader in our Cerulean port city, our setting for the game. Honu gives our players their mission.
The mission was to get these papers from this factory and then give them to the townspeople so they can take this factory down, because this factory is producing a lot of smoke and harmful bacteria.
There's two goals. One of them is to gather evidence in order to draft legislation that shuts down the factory permanently.
My feathers covered in soot. I couldn't breathe.
And the other goal is to take direct action and steal the factory's source of power.
You cannot take my box. This is where all my power is. I need this.
Through the game design there, I wanted to portray that there's very direct things that you can do in terms of battling climate change, and there's also some ways to look into the future as well.
The players, they meet politicians,
City Hall is being able to hold them accountable.
adventurers who are trying to solve this problem.
When you go into the factory, it's going to be a really noxious fumes in the factory.
And through that, they work together to kind of stop this evil.
These will protect you from...
So the things that students and adults are going to be doing when they're going through the campaign is learning some of the things you would actually use for air pollution and how you would be able to protect yourself and your family.
Has anybody ever made an air filter before? What do we need for an air filter? We need a $1 box fan.
The reason why I think it's so important to talk to young people about climate resilient education is that for so many adults, it's still such a scary topic and they don't know how to address it or what to do with it. And so as a result, we're not having these conversations with young people. We're telling them, here's the world that you're going to grow into. Go to school, get good grades, keep doing everything that you need to do to grow up and get a good job. And youth are the world is falling apart. And I know that it's falling apart. And I'm deeply concerned that it's falling apart. And no one is talking to me about it.
There is a specific box that is the source of malarian.
When I think about climate change itself, it makes me feel angry and sad and hopeless. I even have dreams about climate change, which is not fun.
It makes me feel sad because, polar bears, I like polar bears, but polar bears not being able to stand Can't imagine that. Birds that will never be able to fly again because of oil spills. Us, future generations, not being able to breathe properly and having asthma. Like, I have asthma personally.
As youth, like, just hearing like straight like this is the disaster, this is what's going on, like this is what's wrong with the earth, and like it's like very bad, like what can we do? Kind of tying it into like fantasy and a little bit of role play, and like kind of using fun but also problem solving skills to kind of work through real world problems is a like softer and more like productive introduction to climate change and, you know, environmental activism.
Dungeons and Dragons is an incredible way to think about like hope and dreaming, because it is limitless.
So take these with you for any place where you see any slime or sludge in the factory.
When it comes to a lot of climate justice stuff, for example, you can't build a world that you want to live in unless you can imagine that world first.
Figure out if you want to do combat or if you want to try to figure out another solution.
We solved this problem faster without violence than the other groups with violence.
Role play the distractions, and then you have to tell me your charisma, because that adds plus whatever to the distraction.
In real life, I can't have charisma checks, but I can try and talk stuff out instead of, I don't know, getting angry or like just being calm and grounded to solve problems instead of ungrounded.
When we're kind of thinking about like empathy and building relationships and creating community, D&D is a great space for that because it encourages collaboration and working together to find solutions. And those kinds of skills can be applied everywhere.
I'd love some guidance for my team if that's possible.
This is our world, no matter what your views are, your race is, who you are as a person. This is our home. And we have to do what we can to save it, to help it, to empower others around us.
Anyone have anything they want to give Shivani? Any extra luck?
Learning about climate change and activism and how to survive disasters.
Congratulations for making it through toxic.
Just the setup in general, seeing that come to life and seeing youth play through it and like have different strategies to like combat it really just taught me we all have different approaches, but like when we come together as a community and we can figure out real ways to solve this, we can get further.
Congratulations on completing Death by 1,000 Breaths. Give